Hey everyone. Today is the Wife and Woman Day, in which we highlight some of the most egregious females who do the most egregious things on this planet uh, to men, women, children, you name it, they do it. Today we wanted to highlight two very egregious human beings, a teacher and then a couple, let's say three, but specifically the females, right? Our first person is a teacher, and I particularly would look at her way hella funny because she's a teacher and she used and manipulated a child to get a child to do what she wanted to do, even though that child was a convicted whatever. She still manipulated the child. I don't want to mention more than that. I just want to mention her, not what the kid is accused of. So, as a female, she manipulated this child in order to get the child to do what she wanted to do. That's explicitly, to me, a bad human being right off the bat.
To behind bars. Now, if that wasn't shocking enough, it goes to a whole new level because on top of that, she also sent this boy explicit pictures of herself and had sexual contact with him. And the jury in her case just reached a shocking verdict. We got a lot to unpack on this one. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
Does she get her just desserts? We don't.
Look, there are a lot of ways for people to get out of a marriage. None of them are easy, but you have divorce, some sort of amicable separation. But we have seen in so many true crime stories, someone thinking that their way out could be hiring someone to kill their significant other. Prosecutors in tiny Adair County, Kentucky argued that was the approach that 27-year-old Elena Bardin took earlier this year. Now, Elena was a teacher in the public school system, and she was assigned to help young people who were spending time at a local juvenile detention facility, people who were facing charges. It's admirable work. And it also appears that she was a very admirable person outside of work. She was a loving wife, it appeared. She posted videos on TikTok of date night with her husband, and she was also a mom. And she made sure that people knew just how much she loved her daughter. You can see in this post that she says, "My girl." It was posted on March 27th of this year. It was that month of this year. An investigation began, though, into Elena Bardin that would shatter that admirable image that she had both at work and at home.
I hope she don't come across as one of the Christian people or the one that's far right or anything like that. I mean, because this is terrible for a mother who has a daughter to even start to be accused of something like that.
Investigators said that they were doing a routine search of the detention center, just looking for contraband, things like that, of the young people who are spending time behind bars. And during that routine search, they found on one of the juveniles what they called explicit materials. Some of those explicit materials were of Elena Bardin. This boy that they found the explicit materials on was the boy that she was teaching behind bars as an English teacher. Further investigation found that, quote, Bardin had subjected the juvenile to illegal sexual contact and provided him with sexually explicit images of herself. But not only did Kentucky State Police accuse Bardin of having sexual contact with this boy and sending him explicit pictures of herself, they also said that Bardin, quote, solicited a male juvenile at the Adair Juvenile Detention Center to kill her husband. Now that is surprising when you just take a glance at her social media, Facebook, TikTok. It seems
right. She was playing the part. She was playing the loving part to the hilt. She had a kid, a husband. Just everything was in line. Nobody would have looked at her funny. And yet she had the secret life, or she wanted to start the secret life.
Seems like she's in a great marriage, but we always know that social media is only part of the story. The last social media post that Bardin made was on March 28th of her and her daughter. Now, March 28th is important because that was a day after police found those explicit images inside the facility. It is unclear whether she knew what the staff had found related to her at the time she posted this image. But 4 days later, she certainly found out, because on April 2nd, Kentucky State Police put her under arrest. Bardin was arrested. She was charged with solicitation of murder, sexual abuse in the first degree, and distribution of obscene matter to a minor. Her trial just happened this month. And you think about the timeline, I mean, pretty quick compared to some of the other pretty serious trials.
Hell yeah, they already popped her, popped her in, out, and in trial, all within 5 months. She was just out of there. They knew they got her.
So we follow here at Law and Crime. All of this developing in March and April, and here she is with a 2-day trial in September 2025. And at that trial, prosecutors said that Bardin had told the boy that she was teaching that she wanted to kill her husband, or maybe the boy could get one of his friends in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky to do it. This is according to paper The Lexington Herald Leader. Now, the motive, they argued, was that Bardin wanted out of this marriage, but she didn't want to split her assets with her husband in a divorce, and she did not want to share custody of their 5-year-old daughter. The newspaper writes,
damn, what kind of husband did she have? She didn't even want to allow him to see the kid. She didn't even want him to deal with anything other than her. Dang, that's boyish.
That the juvenile was in jail on a murder charge. And Bardin, we actually have reportedly some of the things she specifically said to him that was found in letters and a diary that investigators got during their investigation. One of the things that she wrote this boy in a letter reportedly said, quote, I know you say you'll take care of him, but shouldn't someone else do it to take the suspicion away from you? Bardin also wrote in a diary.
See, that just goes to show you, just because you're an adult don't mean you dumb. Why would you even share that kind of dangerous rhetoric, that dangerous, we keep telling you that, HQ, you don't believe the man. It ain't always the man, okay? It ain't always the man that is not in trouble. Why would she be plotting against her husband? I'm not saying he did anything. I'm just saying this is the case-by-case basis. Goofy people do goofy things, okay? Why wouldn't you want to share your assets with your husband? No, that's different from what you talking about, Black America. She talking about taking them out where she get all of them. Y'all talking about half. She talking about all.
That the boy would, quote, make comments verbally and in writing about, quote, getting rid of my husband. I would ask him what he meant. He was always very adamant that if he never did anything criminal again, he would do it alone. The Times Leader writes that Bardin's defense attorney, though.
Yeah, but how do you walk up on that conversation? You don't walk up on that type of conversation. Nobody walks up on that type of conversation. Even if you meet somebody, they don't just automatically start talking about, taking people out. You had to have made the suggestion. You had to be open to it somehow, some way. She was open to it. And this kid is on 13? I don't know how old the kid is.
Looked at all of this and said any sort of solicitation of murder that was going on, all of that was a joke between a teacher and a student. Maybe it crossed a line ethically, but in terms of her trying to hire a hitman to kill her husband, the defense said absolutely not. The letters, they said, about killing Bardin's husband, that they were never actually taken seriously. The newspaper did say that the juvenile testified and told jurors that he thought Bardin was serious about killing her husband, but he never actually planned to do anything about it. I mean, It is important to note he's facing a murder charge. He's behind bars. It's unclear if and when he would ever actually get out of jail. Bardin's attorney also appears.
But he's a murder charge or regular murder or something he already did.
Appears to have attacked the credibility of this juvenile witness on the stand. And he tried to make the argument to jurors that this boy was grooming his teacher as much as she was reportedly grooming him.
What the hell is a young kid grooming a teacher? This is just excuses.
Tough argument to make, but we do see in cases like this that defense attorneys have to take those kind of stands in hopes of appealing to jurors. Now, when it came to the sexual part of this relationship, prosecutors presented explicit pictures that Bardin sent this boy. In fact, they say she went to Walmart to develop them. They also have security camera footage showing her going into the boy's cell, even though that is not allowed per the detention facility's rules. Detectives also read nearly 140 pages of letters that Bardin sent this boy, many reportedly including explicit language and sexual fantasies of this teacher, but also explained
some goofy female giving sex to a young man. Yeah, a pedophile for sure. Okay, there's female pedophiles. Hey, nobody's denying that. And it's a different story. She having sex with him, but you having sex with him in the hopes that he gonna decide that he gonna break your husband off. That's crazy. You want him to break your husband off.
Life, sexual contact with the boy, and the boy reportedly confirmed all of that happened on the stand. Now, this trial lasted 2 days, and the jury came back with a shocking verdict. Bardin, this mom, this wife, this English teacher, she was found guilty on one count of first-degree sexual abuse and a count of unlawful transaction with a minor and distribution of obscene material to a minor. But this is where things get shocking.
She had to be off in order to do something like this. She had to be off.
Because when you think about the explicit pictures, if they have that, it is incredibly clear what she actually did with this juvenile. But when it came to the count of trying to get a boy in a juvenile facility to kill her husband, jurors found her not guilty. Perhaps behind that argument, that part of her communication with
how did they find her not guilty? She's not guilty. So how you going back? How's she finna walk this back? Why?
It was a joke. Maybe the boy saying he never really thought about actually doing it or would have been able to kill her husband. Maybe that had an impact on jurors. Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I want to talk about an important sponsor. You know, they keep us busy here at Law and Crime. Bills, a code On the Case to get 20% off your first order in just a moment. But if she did actually want to get her marriage to end, the Times leader writes that her husband filed for divorce in May of this year, and he also filed for sole custody of their daughter. As for the prison sentence, prosecutors are asking for a sentence of up to 14 years in prison. So this former teacher, now former wife, soon to be inmate, is slated for sentencing in November. All right, joining us now to talk a little bit more about this is criminal defense attorney John Day. Thank you as always for taking the time to be with us here on Law and Crime. So they have the messages that she allegedly sent saying that she wanted this juvenile to kill her husband, but she's found not guilty. What do you make of that?
Thanks for having me, Chris. So this is an unusual one because the prosecution would not have brought this case unless they had a good faith belief that they had more than enough to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that she was trying to hire someone, in this case, this minor, to kill her husband. So what we see is that the jury was very thoughtful. They deliberated on this and were able to toss out some of the charges based on the testimony they heard. She still was convicted of felonies, but the main case against her brought by these prosecutors failed.
And it seems like from what I've read that the defense's approach to the messages about allegedly wanting to get this minor who's behind bars in this juvenile detention facility to get him or one of his friends to go and take out her husband to get out of this marriage. And the defense seemed to be, she was never actually serious about that.
Oh, that's why she wasn't found guilty, because they didn't believe that she really wanted to kill her husband. But the whole point was, well, you can't deny the pictures. She got nude pictures, giving them to the kid. So they had the picture. They had her dead to right for sexual misconduct and deviancy. So, but they didn't have her dead to rights for the murder. Oh yeah, they got her.
How effective is that argument, the "I was just kidding" argument, in cases like this, where you might have a piece of evidence, like a note or something like that, saying where someone actually wanted to do it?
Right. Well, I mean, in this case, it was effective, and the defense team was able to convince the jury that they shouldn't take it seriously. And of course, that's a blow to the prosecution. But again, remember, they were able to determine that in their eyes, she was guilty of, crimes of dishonesty, crimes that involve things like sending the material to the minors, involvement.
But they didn't want to convict her of plotting to kill her husband. She got lesser charges
with the minor. So the jury was able to at least make some kind of distinction there. But the idea at the end of the day that the defense can say, look, don't take this seriously. She's just, sort of, this is a humorous exchange between the defendant working at the facility and then these juvenile inmates, the juvenile people, the kids in detention. I mean, that must have been very effective in the eyes of the jury, because even though they were able to convict her, they still had doubt. They still had a belief that what the defense was saying was accurate. And remember, she did not testify, and they apparently didn't call any other witnesses. So this was solely based on picking apart the prosecution's case.
Because to your point here's someone who you know, there's evidence that she had crossed every sort of ethical line and legal line when it came to having sexual contact with a minor.
Right.
She's sending these notes. There was like 140 pages. And I did note in the newspaper that I guess even the detective was blushing when he was reading these messages that she was sending the boy, because they were that explicit.
Right.
It appears that they had some sort of motive. They believe that she wanted out of her marriage, but not to split the assets, not have to share custody of their daughter. So it seemed like in a lot of cases that this is typically where it gets a guilty verdict. In cases like this, though, where you see kind of this split decision, what type of jury typically goes in? Like, what does that say about this group of people that
they couldn't decide that she was a freak? He was a kid. She was promising him sex. She was promising him sex for him to help. Okay. We'll be there at 10 o'clock. He was promising her that she was promising him sex. And he was like, the sex ain't, I don't know whether she was having sex or she just was promising him sex. Maybe she was letting him touch it. I mean, he a kid. Of course, obviously, shoot, he'd drink her piss if she asked him to when it comes to sex.
they saw that? And how common is it to actually see a jury be able to kind of distinguish what she's charged from here and what she's actually guilty of here?
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Chris. And I'm thinking back to the maybe thousands jury trials that I've done in my career, and every single time, what I notice, and it's always the same. A jury is they take their job seriously. Okay, you may not like the outcome,
Right.
whether you're a prosecutor or defense attorney, but the jurors are, this is their job. They're brought together. These are 12 people or 6 people or however many it is who don't know each other, and they're brought together. And they're given this task, they're given this assignment to sit there and listen to this evidence. A lot of times.
See, and that's the thing. Some people don't believe a young man can be a victim. Some people can't believe if she's so nice that she can do no wrong. So Becky can't do no wrong sometimes. That's why they couldn't convict a woman like her.
Sometimes it's incredibly disturbing. And so you've got situations where people who are strangers to each other sit in a little room.
Right.
They're watching video. They're hearing disturbing testimony. They're looking over at a defendant sitting at the defense table. At the end of the day, they take their job seriously. And a lot of times I've disagreed with their verdicts, but I've never thought that the jurors in my cases didn't take their job seriously. In this case, in this Kentucky case, what we see is a jury that did take their job seriously. They sat down there and they were able to pick apart the case that the prosecution threw at them and said, okay, we believe parts of this. We don't believe other parts of this.
Right.
And even though the facts here are incredibly disturbing, involving allegations of involvement with a minor at the juvenile detention facility, they were able to say to the prosecutors, basically, you didn't have it. You didn't prove it to us. And we took our job seriously. And we looked at the evidence and we were able to acquit her of some serious charges.
So even though they had it written down on paper, she had it written down on paper, they were jokingly saying it. She was saying it. Nobody knows what these messages say. So it could have been a matter of them making a mistake in how to interpret them. Well, maybe it wasn't that serious. Maybe she was just flirting with him. I mean, this is what they thought. This is what they apparently thought. It wasn't that serious. She could have sex with the kid, but that don't mean she wanted her to kill her husband.
So the timeline for this from investigation to a verdict seemed very quick, because it was in March of this year, end of March, that they discovered these explicit materials. Then 4 days later, it's April 2025.
Right.
She's arrested. And then here we are. It's a 2-day trial in September to determine whether or not she's guilty. That feels quick. What do you make of that timeline?
Yeah, it's quick. I mean, jurisdictions differ in terms of what their caseloads look like, but this does, and particularly seem like a quick track for the prosecution's case. And then, of course, the jury didn't take them too long to come back. I mean, they had some idea going into it what they wanted to do. Obviously, listening to the evidence.
Right.
But it was probably my guess, from having had these types of cases before in situations with juries, they probably went into deliberations having some skepticism, at least, about the prosecution's case, because they were able to pick that apart and say, we're going to acquit her of these charges. So as the evidence is being presented,
I mean, the solid evidence was her in the nude photos. Okay, there was solid evidence in the nude photos. But hey, they let Becky skate on. They let her skate. Why?
As the case is unfolding, they're being skeptical.
And this trial lasted just 2 days, which I think for some of the high profile stories that we're often talking about, these are trials that go on for a long time. Brian Koberger would have been 3 months.
Right.
Sean Diddy Combs, that was determined to.
Y'all make sure y'all hitting the like button. Hit the like button, subscribe for the content. The live show is at 10 p.m. That's the lively show, but we putting some more crime on the docket.
Be a pretty long trial as well, far more than just 2 days. Very different situations, and I get that. But what goes into determining how long a trial is actually going to go? And in this case, just 2 days.
Right.
Well, both sides make an estimate for the judge. Prosecution looks at how many witnesses they have, what the type of testimony is. Is there a lot of, video? Is there a lot of photographs? And this, is there a lot of, in cases involving things like homicide, of course, you're going to have lots of autopsy reports and photographs. And this particular case was probably streamlined, it seems like, because it was from the prosecution.
They don't say too much about the husband, I do it.
Prosecution standpoint, it was relatively straightforward, not a lot of expert testimony, for example. That takes up a lot of time when both sides have battling expert witnesses who are testifying. The prosecution put together what they must have thought was a streamlined case, but given the verdict, you wonder, did they shortchange their office? Did they really have it together?
Right.
Because when you go up and you lose on counts like this, when it's the most serious charges, you've got to go back and wonder, what did we do wrong?
No, they just assumed that people could make the jump from her showing text messages, her having sex, to her making him try to kill her husband. They thought people would make that jump. Most people ain't gonna make that jump. Most people is gonna think it's outrageous for her to even come with that. Okay. But the whole point is most people can't make that jump. I mean, I would have been like, okay, I see some text message, some messages that's saying you want me to kill your husband. Maybe she's for real. There was no detail. Maybe it was just a thought. Maybe it was just one thing said. But the husband believed it because the husband filed for divorce and took the kid.
Now, what is on the prosecution side, and even for the defense in your work too, when it comes to determining, okay, here's the evidence we have, and this is what we need to get? Because maybe in hindsight, they're looking and saying, was there a witness that we could have brought? I know that they had the juvenile himself on the stand, and I'm sure they felt really good about him as a witness. The text message, or not the text messages, the letters, they had a diary from her as well, surveillance video of her going in. And that certainly made a strong case on the sexual counts that she was facing. And
it wasn't like she was really ugly or she had a problem finding a man on the street. I mean, I would have thought better of her if she would have found a man on the street. Just because a person is criminally minded or in trouble criminally does not mean they're willing to go that far. Hey, if I'm a thief, I'm a thief. That don't mean I'm a murderer. Okay, that don't mean I'm a grab a thief and ask him to do some murder or some weird shit just because your pussy is good. I don't get what she thought he would make that jump. Or at least he was a smart enough kid to say, oh, hell no, I ain't doing that.
What is the strategy typically when it comes to making sure that you're telling a story that is one that can keep jurors engaged and not boring them, but also not shortchanging them of important facts?
Right. Well, you kind of hit on the key factor. I mean, if you're a trial lawyer doing criminal law, whether you're on the prosecution side or the defense side, you've got to be a storyteller. I mean, the best lawyers I've ever seen in court are also the best storytellers. And they're the ones who have been able to, whether it comes naturally or whether it's something you've worked on for years, you're able to put together a narrative in a way that a jury can follow it, can understand it, and can believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, they can accept your version of events. So if you are, we see this a lot in younger lawyers, younger prosecutors, defense lawyers. They don't have maybe storytelling skills that they will develop down the road in their career. But that kind of stuff, jurors are used to things like watching lawyer shows on television and in the movies, and they see these streamlined presentations that are, polished and eloquent, and they go in there expecting that. They expect that
you to tell a story, and you to be able to tell a story and make it coherent enough where we gonna believe that she was having sex with the little boy. They just didn't believe that she wanted to have sex with the little boy. That's it.
That even though he felt like he was never going to go through with it,
I'm sorry,
and never actually gave it serious thought. Could that, even though she was found guilty, factor into a judge's decision about, well, she still said some pretty disturbing things, at least, about her husband to a witness that testified at this trial?
Ooh. Yes, absolutely. The statements of the witnesses are going to be sitting in the judge's mind as the judge is making the sentencing determination. Judges are surprised sometimes by a jury's verdict.
Right.
And in their minds, they can sort of adjust the punishment to fit what they think really happened. Judges accept the jury's verdict, obviously, but at the same time, they've sat through the evidence, they've heard the testimony.
Right.
And, I've had cases where judges are frustrated that the prosecution couldn't close the deal.
She didn't even get that far. Okay. She didn't get far enough for them to even get to that. For some reason, they found it. They were doing a routine. They were doing a routine spot check in the prison. And then in his cell, they had nude pictures, text messages, all kinds of goofy stuff like that. And so that's how they pulled her in. She's a teacher at the prison. And so they found the kid had all this stuff in his cell, pictures of her, explicit stuff. They saw her going into his room. She wasn't supposed to be going into his room, but they saw her doing all of that. So she the one caught herself up.
And you go through all the scenarios with your client. I mean, you've done this beforehand, but it really hits home when you're waiting on a verdict. You tell them, here's the possibility. Here's what looked good for us. Here's what
she still is facing 14 years.
Didn't look good for us. Be prepared for the worst case scenario. And the best lawyers are able to prepare their clients for that eventuality. I mean,
I say she mentally ill. See, you'd have to be mentally ill to even think to even go near a kid anyway. So
you look back at the O.J. Simpson trial and that his lawyers told him, there's a real serious chance that you're going to be convicted here. And so when the verdict comes back and it's less than what the prosecution wanted, it's not, in this case, it wasn't a full acquittal, but the defense has got to be pleased with being able to get an acquittal on the most serious charge. And the client, the defendant, of course, is going to be relieved. They're still facing time, but it's not nearly as much as they would have been. So there's a sense of relief, even though it's very likely that they're going to do some prison time.
And then just lastly, that the prosecution and what they may present asking for 14 years, when she's sentenced in November, what can the defense do to try and limit the damage and the amount of time that she'll spend in prison?
The defense from now until the sentencing date is going to be focused on mitigating her sentence, providing
sort of like P. Diddy, which P. Diddy is supposed to be sentenced, I think, October 3rd in about 3 weeks. We're definitely going to be there.
Information to the judge about her, who she is, what's her background, what led her to this place, what is there that that the judge ought to consider in showing some leniency. I mean, you put together a whole book on your client. You get family history, you get social history, medical history, work history. You talk to friends, you talk to neighbors. I mean, to do a really good job on a sentencing like this, you've got to have an entire, essentially a book about your client, about the defendant, to give to the judge to say, look, this is who she is. This is how she got here. She made a mistake. She hasn't made any mistakes like this previously, if that's the case. You basically are building a story about your client, about the defendant that has to be based on facts, obviously, but you want the judge to look at it and say, here are a lot of reasons not to max her out. Here are a lot of reasons not to give her the maximum sentence.
So maximum sentence is 14 years. That's her maximum sentence. Okay. And the prosecution is asking for the maximum sentence. Throw the book at her. I'm not saying, hey, she need to do 14 years. But I am saying she need to do more than what she, that 5 years or whatever. She need to do more than that. So we turn to this case. This is goofy cases that women have done who are found guilty or they in the middle of trial and whatnot. Right now, here's the case where the woman or the man or whoever was sort of having sex with the animals. Here we go.
What a real estate agent now accused of the unthinkable. Both are facing several charges, accused of possessing child pornography and several counts of allegedly performing sex acts with a dog. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime.
Even that shit sound weird as hell.
I'm Chris Stewart. No words for this one. I'm going to be honest with you up front before we go through this episode. This is a story that is not easy to talk about, and it is disgusting what this couple is accused of doing. It's also just scary when you think about this couple and what they presented to the public, but who they
Animals can't get people pregnant, right?
may really be. As much as we can say this is disgusting, and certainly what they're accused of is disgusting, it is scary and terrifying, truly an alleged wolves in sheep's clothing. And this is why. Let's get into it. The couple's names, Jordan and Harley Hoffman. Now, the couple allegedly, they put up this front where you would not expect them to be accused of this. I mean, it's hard to believe anybody would be accused.
They better not say they one of them Christian people. They better not say that at all.
Of this, but this couple, they have children, 2 children from what we can see in pictures. And they also had good jobs. Harley worked as a real estate agent. And it seems from social media, she also lost a lot of weight recently, that she was feeling very confident about herself. Jordan, her husband, he was a firefighter in Columbia County, Florida, where they lived. And now where they are both facing charges, including alleged sex acts with a dog. Now, here's what we know. This story first broke in Lake City, Florida in August when Jordan, the husband, was arrested by Lake City, Florida police. Detectives said there was a tip that came in from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Now, on the surface, he appeared to be a model dad, a firefighter in the community, a first responder. He would post pictures as normal dads would, either working on his truck or being there with his wife for an ultrasound when they were expecting a child. The tip, though, that came in through the National Center for Missing and...
What y'all think? He was watching the dog put it to her? Y'all think he was watching the dog put it to her? He was watching the dog put it to her. Just make that shit sink in. Let that shit sink in. Let me stop.
Exploited children shattered that image. It unveiled an alleged horrifying reality of who this man may actually be if found guilty. It was about alleged child sexual exploitation material being shared on Snapchat. Now, detectives received this tip and then they went through and tried to trace it back to a number. They said the material was that of a, quote, prepubescent child engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Now, further investigation found that the account was that of Jordan Hoffman.
Just like that, Lee. Just like that. This is wild.
A 33-year-old firefighter in Lake City, Florida. Police say they found that Hoffman was the subject of a second tip that came in related to allegedly sending another image of an unclothed child. Hoffman was arrested and sent to the local jail. After his arrest, detectives got his phone, they analyzed it, and this story became even more disturbing in ways that we could not have expected.
Criminal-minded human beings criminal-minded human beings and the stuff they get up to.
Not only did that phone allegedly show more child sexual exploitation material, they uncovered evidence allegedly involving Hoffman's wife, Harley, a local real estate agent. And then detectives said not only were both the Hoffmans now accused of alleged sexual material involving children, but animals as well. Specifically, according to court documents, alleged sex acts with a dog. Now, Jordan Hoffman faces numerous counts related to the alleged images depicting him engaging in sex acts with the animal.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. I almost threw up.
Local TV station WCJB reports that Harley Hoffman allegedly is visible in the images with the animal as well. Jordan Hoffman is facing 57 counts.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa. What is she doing with the animal? What is she doing with the animal?
Related to what officers say they found on his phone. You can see in this count, it says on or about August 24th, 2025.
Stop right there. What is that? Count 20. John F. Durrett, State Attorney of the 3rd Judicial Court, Circuit Court of Florida, further charged that Jordan Hoffman, on or about August 24th, 2025, in Columbia County, Florida, did then and there knowingly film, distributed, or possessed any pornographic image or video of a person and an animal engaged in sexual contact with an animal, to wit dog. When it contract, ooh, wow.
In Columbia County, Florida, did then and there knowingly film, distributed, and possessed any pornographic image or video of a person and an animal engaged in sexual contact with an animal. Jordan Hoffman's charges include 35 counts of sexual activity involving animals, 13 counts of possession of child pornography, 5 counts of promoting
Poor dog. Shut up, Sir Roach. You crazy.
sexual performance by a child, and other charges including unlawful use of a two-way device and a count of destroying evidence. His wife Harley is facing 14 counts, and that includes 8 for sexual activity involving animals and 5.
Wait a minute. Does that mean that she was actually she was doing the deed with the dog? She was watching. That means she was doing the deed with the dog, right? I mean, was she strapping something on and doing something with the dog? Or was they strapping the dog on her back? Or whoa.
5 for possession of child pornography. Now, there are still a lot of details that have yet to come out, including what relation this couple had to their alleged victims. Now, we do know
the dog hired his own lawyer.
That they were parents. Harley posted TikToks with their kids. They were seen out on Christmas like so many families do.
Girl, I ain't know they do this shit. I ain't know they did this shit. You hear it, but you don't. Wow.
Taking pictures in front of a tree. Harley's employer, though, posted this statement on their social media. It's a local real estate company, and it was in response to her arrest. It reads, quote, "We are aware of the recent allegations made against one of our now former realtors. Southern Integrity Realty does not condone or support the behaviors associated with these allegations. We are committed to upholding the highest standards of professionalism and integrity within our organization and promoting safety within this community we love." Court records show that
the dog case is brought.
Harley Hoffman waived her arraignment. She entered a not guilty plea to all the charges that she is facing, and it reads that she's demanding a jury trial in this case. Jordan has yet to enter a plea.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It don't matter whether she did it or not. You knew your man liked to fuck dogs. You knew that. Off the bat, you knew that. Okay? So that means you nasty too. Regardless of whether you did it or not, whether you held the dog down, whether you held the dog's head, had him on a tight leash, had him chained up, you knew what time it was for your man. We already know what your man's did, but what did you do? What was you doing? Was you holding the dog? See, that's some wild shit. Wow.
According to court records, he is next expected in court on October 1st for a hearing where he is demanding his bond be lowered. Do you ever notice how some habits just sneak into your day without you even realizing it? For a lot of people, that means reaching for something. By code, you will get a free fume topper, which is an awesome accessory to level up your experience. So click the link, tryfume.com/law and crime, or scan. Understate that. Even if they were career criminals, what they're accused of would be unthinkable. But on top of the good jobs and appearing to be a happy family, the Hoffmans have no serious criminal record other than previous traffic issues. Joining us now to talk.
Yeah, but this is deviant behavior. Look, don't nobody wake up in the morning and say, I want to put some Vaseline on a dog's ass and then, see what that be like. Don't nobody say that. And don't a woman say, I think I'm finna get wet for the husky. I don't think so. Specifically, what kind of dog was it? A Chihuahua? Oh, he really need to go to jail if it was a Chihuahua. They didn't say what kind of dog it was, would it? Would they be able to hold a Doberman Pinscher? I don't think it would be one of them bad dogs. One of them bad dogs that's real mean. I don't think they would be doing that.
More about this is criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Kathleen Bogenschutz.
She can't even look. I mean, this is wild. A Saint Bernard, she would have to be able to hold the dog. He would have to be able to hold the dog. Did he actually climax? Did anything? What?
Joining us from Florida. Thank you for taking the time to be with us on Law and Crime. I know this is not a fun.
Just imagine a Chihuahua. They would need to get double the sentence. If it was a teacup dog, you'd be getting double the sentence from me.
Fun story to talk about, to say the least. 70 charges in total between this couple. It's 57 for Jordan Hoffman, that his wife Harley, roughly 13 charges for her. What?
Wait. How do you get 57 charges? I mean, how do you get 57 charges? I mean, is it half for the dog and half for the kid? We just forgot about the kid. Man, but how do you translate from the kid to the dog? Wow.
What does that tell you about the evidence that prosecutors have against the couple in this case?
So most of us don't think like offenders in our daily lives, and for good reason, and I'm glad we don't. But this is something that when I was prosecuting sex crimes, we used to talk about every single day. Right. What do you need in order to, if you were inclined to do so, to victimize a child like this, to victimize animals like this? You need access.
I know damn well they don't have a kid doing some stuff. I know they ain't got them. I know they not doing, letting the kid do some stuff. I just, no, come on, y'all.
To the victim, and you also need privacy. So if you have one without the other, you can't do it. Lake City is we're a much more rural area in Florida. And it would not shock me that they had the privacy to be able to do these kinds of things and to create this kind of stuff. You wouldn't expect somebody to be creating it someplace where, you're in an apartment building with thin walls,
okay,
things like that. You need to have the access to the victim, and you need to have the privacy to be.
The whole family. Was the child their child? Some other child? What were they making the child do something?
Able to do it, particularly in this kind of, I hate to say prolific kind of a way.
Because if someone was found with one video of what they're accused of, which is bestiality they're accused of, as well as child sex abuse material, right. One would be, I would assume, prison time and would be a very, very serious offense. But when you're facing as many as they are, how would cases like that differ, knowing that there is just so much that they apparently have on this couple?
Well, it's actually a really good point that you make, because unfortunately, I mean, it's great when technology improves over time for us as people, usually. But back in the day, like back in the 90s and the early 2000s, if people were trying to exchange videos like this, I mean, they were sending CDs through the mail. They were sending those old floppy disks through the mail. Right. And these days, computers are just capable of so much, and cameras are capable of so much, and you can fit so much onto one little SD card and trade it over the internet so easily.
And that's what they did.
That we have seen just a real increase in the number of.
See, here's the question. Did they sell this material? Or did they just have it for their own pleasure? Okay. Made Kirk birthday a holiday, which is also Jewish. I know they did not make no holiday, declare his birthday a holiday. I mean, I know they did not do that.
Videos and photos that individual offenders have had
on their
devices, just as technology has improved, which kind of makes sense. The sentencing guidelines, however, have not changed that much. And I would expect to see some pretty significant, at least under Florida sentencing guidelines. I'm assuming that we would be dealing with aggravated child pornography. We've got multiple charges, and then we're going to end up with minimum mandatories based on that.
What if you had to ballpark the type of prison sentence that they could face? What type of time would they be looking at?
So Florida has score sheets, and it's basically so former judge that's a public defender, former judge that's a prosecutor. You get almost like a sentencing guideline range. In this case, I would expect that it is entirely possible that at least the male of the two with the larger number of counts.
Yeah, I'm ready to get the fuck off here too. This is crazy.
May score in the range. I could sit down and work it out with a pencil and paper, but he may score in the range of a potential life sentence in Florida if you score over 360 points. not months, points, the judge could sentence you to a life sentence.
Damn. He could get life? He could get life for doing this bullshit. Well, then he deserved life then. It depends on, well, I guess it don't depend. A dog. These white folks love their dogs, though. That's crazy.
And it's just, there's a lot of this story that's shocking. I mean, I think even, their professions, they seem to be on the surface kind of like model citizens, but then there's all of this. And even...
You think I'm going to get a decent amount, Ty Pro, for the discussion tonight? You think it's going to be a decent amount that show up? Hopefully a decent amount show up for the discussion. Because somebody did say that to me in the prior.
With what they're accused of, like they could be career criminals, and it still would be shocking that someone would do this stuff. But and of course we'll see how they're innocent until proven guilty. I want to say that. But when you look at this case and you prosecuted sex crimes and the fact that there's this bestiality,
and then she ain't an ugly woman neither. I mean, well, I guess it. Wait a minute, hold on.
The element to it as well that they're accused of. I mean, how common
right.
is a case like this?
Right.
I can tell you that, and I was assigned to do sex crimes for 8 of the 12 years I was a prosecutor. I think I have only seen 2 or 3 bestiality cases. And keep in mind that, I was also in an office that for 4 of those years, that is the only thing I did. Those are the only kinds of cases that were assigned to me. So highly unusual.
Wow.
Not saying it never happens, but there's reasons, there are laws against it.
Yeah, I think there was. I don't know whether they had the kids having sex. I don't know whether they were just watching kids have sex, or the kids was having sex with the animals, or they was just having sex. I don't know which one did. They ain't really clear with that. But I know kids were involved with this. Yeah, whatever it is, you need to get some years.
Put it that way. And I will also make this other point, like, they look like upstanding citizens. Something that a forensic psychologist said to me years ago has always resonated with me. And I pass this on for the parents of other small children, as I have a young daughter as well.
He looked muscular, which means he must have been a big dog. Must have been a big dog. Big husky dude. Woo! Needed a big dog. Chihuahua, he would be getting life.
If monsters looked like monsters, they
right.
would never be able to get close enough.
Right. If monsters looked like real monsters, we would never be able to get close enough. She right about that.
So, if somebody looks dangerous and scary, they're probably not going to be able to get close to your kid or close to you.
Right.
And I hate to, espouse paranoia,
right.
but this is why we keep our radar up as parents and as people. And this is why we don't let our kids go over to other people's houses without supervision and making sure we know who they are.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a really profound kind of way, because I haven't necessarily, I mean, we cover a lot of cases, unfortunately, where it's the kind of the wolf in sheep's clothing is the cliche line. And then it's like, you look at this one and it's a family of 4, and we don't know if their children were involved in this. But they just look like normal people with normal jobs. And then you read the court documents and it's just, they're accused of being monsters. And I think the other part of it too, for me, that I find in cases where you have not just one member of the family who's accused of being involved in some of this terrible stuff, but you have a second person in the family who's involved allegedly in this stuff. And it's just, what is the dynamic that you see in some of these cases involving couples where it's like you have 2 people who are predators, allegedly, who have found themselves in this world, and then they continue on and then eventually find themselves in cases like this.
So I'll show my age here for a second. I think I'm a bit older than you are. Back in the 90s in Canada, there was this case. It was called the Ken and Barbie killers. The prosecution gave this sweetheart plea deal to the female of the 2 because they were allegedly abducting and sexually assaulting females together and eventually killing some of them.
Wow.
And the female got the plea deal, the benefit of the plea deal, and got a couple of years in prison, I think, with light at the end of the tunnel, and has been released since.
Right.
And then they found the videos. of
Oh.
what was happening, and apparently she was participating in all of it.
Wow.
It's always a question mark. And another thing that, an old homicide prosecutor
Right.
told me when I was, trying to find some meaning in a case, and he said, if you try to impose your logic on something that defies it, you're going to just drive yourself insane and accomplish nothing.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
we've seen these male-female teams work in the past. There's even video footage of it from back in the 90s. And of course, that would have had to have been one of these type cameras.
Right.
But they were filming their exploits with these girls. And it turned out that the female of the couple was just as involved. Now, she claimed in that case, it was Carla Homolka, and the male's name is escaping me, Paul Bernardo, I think. But
Wow.
she was claiming to be the victim of domestic violence. There were these pictures of her with her eyes punched out. So there was this kind of decision made by the prosecutors that one of these two is more culpable than the other.
Right.
And that maybe she was, there was some kind of Stockholm syndrome going on when she was participating.
Sort of like everybody thought about P. Diddy and Cassie.
Into it. And then they found the videos. And there was kind of a public outcry to revoke her plea offer. And I think in Canada it was the Crown prosecutor, but they stood by their plea deal. But I mean, we have seen these kinds of like folie à deux type couples happen in the past. I'm not saying that's what happened here.
Right.
It's entirely possible that, we've got one out of the two that has significantly more power in the relationship. But I mean, we'll just have to wait and see.
Because just based off and that's an interesting point about domestic violence, and certainly there's relationships that involve domestic violence that are incredibly serious. In this case, you have, Jordan is facing 57 charges. His wife, it's 13 or 14 charges. All of them serious charges that she's facing. But it seems that he was far more involved based off the evidence than she was. Yet I know that there's a local TV station saying that she was seen in the video, so she is there. How could the defense, how effective is that defense if they go?
She was in the video holding the dog. She was holding the dog, maybe, but we don't know. Maybe sucking something. Woo-wee. Woo-wee.
With, well, he was the one leading this. This was, maybe an abusive relationship. He had the power in the relationship, and she was just kind of there, trapped part of it. I mean, how effective can that be in a case like this where, if you show this video, which we haven't seen it, not that I think anybody would want to see it, but if you show that video to a jury,
right,
it seems like that'd be a very strong piece of evidence against her.
She was sucking. Yeah, she was. Whoa, she was putting the peen in her mouth. The dog peeing in her mouth. How would the dog be able to control his piss? Wouldn't that be another thing?
So Florida has a theory of prosecution called principal theory. And the way that I used to explain it to juries is that the Nuremberg defense doesn't fly in Florida. Like, I was just following orders.
Yeah, literally eating the dogs out.
This guy told me to do it, so I did it. Or I only pulled the lever. I didn't shoot the gun.
Right.
If you take some part in the offense, you are responsible for all of the offense.
Ouch.
So, or if you really want to work it down into colloquialisms, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound.
Right.
So in front of a jury, that argument should not carry a lot of water with the principal theory.
They would lose their kids for sure. You might as well write those kids off. Them kids ain't coming back to y'all ever.
Instruction. But it may hold some water with the prosecution in deciding if one of the two wants to turn state.
And how did they find each other? Did they find each other online and say, "Hey, I like to put the sausage to dogs. Do you like to watch me put sausage to dogs, or do you like to suck sausage from dogs?" How did they figure out that each one of them liked doing things with the dogs? On top of the fact that, how did you get to liking kids too? Well, then again, it's not automatically a hop, skip, and a jump from sex with dogs to sex with kids. It's not automatic, but
it's evidence and testify against the other. And it would appear that these two are married. So then we also have issues of spousal privilege. Now, I will also note that there are important exceptions to spousal privilege in Florida when a child is victimized or when there's domestic violence.
Right.
So, basically you can't.
And they didn't do nothing with their kids. Apparently they kept their kids out of it. Kid wasn't in no pictures or nothing. It was just a female. They were videotaping. How do you stand there and see your man put the peen in the dog and then you turn around and have sex with him after he done put the peen?
Terrorize your family and then claim spousal privilege.
I did see in court records where
Wow.
she waived her arraignment and entered a plea of not guilty. He has not, so he's still slated to have his arraignment. I think it's October 1st. What would you read into that? What does that tell you about? Is there anything to take away from how both, if they're going to be tried separately, how these cases could go?
Right.
So they obviously can't be represented by the same lawyer. I don't know if the public defender's office was appointed to her, and then another attorney, maybe off of the wheel. That's what we call it, the wheel. Like a private attorney would be a specially appointed public defender, or he would get conflict counsel, essentially, to represent him. So that could be the explanation as to why she was able to enter a plea and he was not. There's a bunch of steps of bureaucracy that you have to go through when the public defender's office conflicts off a case. So I haven't looked it up to check that she has a public defender, but that's my first suspicion, that he's kind of winding his way through the bureaucracy to get his own lawyer appointed.
Right.
And I know you're a criminal defense attorney as well. And I think for Jordan, the husband, facing 57 total charges, these were tips that came in through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Apparently, prosecutors have some very damning evidence against him. What's the defense? What's the strategy when you have a client that it seems like prosecutors would have him? And of course, he's accused at this point. We haven't seen the evidence, but they would have him dead to rights that you have this child sex abuse material on your phone and your wife is allegedly in the videos as well. And there's the bestiality element to it too, which makes it even more shocking.
So the first move that I would be making is to examine the search warrants, because there's probably multiple levels of search warrants that were done in this case.
Right.
I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, but that's your first move as a defense attorney. Just because it's a truly disgusting, stomach-turning crime doesn't mean that they don't deserve the same protections under the law that we all do.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think they insane. I think they went to a whole nother level, and we got to remember, hey, sometimes insane people find each other. They find each other.
I would be looking at the search warrants. I would be double checking that the things that they applied for the search warrants for were actually criminal offenses. I actually have a case like that open right now, where the police applied for a search warrant and then never charged the guy for the first crime because they decided they didn't have probable cause. And I went, yikes, that doesn't sound like it had, that doesn't sound like it was a very good basis for a search warrant. And we're going to be litigating that.
Right.
So that's your first move. Your second move is to see a lot of times when you have a family and they're all using different devices, like who actually had access to it. Now, because we have cell phones with Face ID and stuff like that, that might fail really quickly.
Right.
For purposes of saying, oh, somebody else was in my
phone. See, I'm suspicious. It could be pigs. See, if you're a fool with a dog, you're a fool with my stomach is heaving. If you're a fool with a dog, then you're a fool with other stuff. Okay. This is very disgusting. These folks, they live amongst us though. They live amongst us.
Yeah, it's Face ID, and computers and phones have the ability to, like, for example, my MacBook now can read my fingerprint to open the computer, and you can look through the past events to show whether it was my passcode that I typed in or whether I used my finger. And one of those two is far more likely to be personally me. Right. So depending on what kinds of devices they have, might be fairly dead to rights, and it might be time to negotiate. But it doesn't mean you don't kick the tires as a defense attorney. It doesn't mean you don't read through all the warrants. I have seen some very stupid mistakes made by some very smart police officers and prosecutors in the past.
And if at the end of the day, you look and everything was done by the book, they have him, let's just say. I mean, if you're a prosecutor,
Right.
why, or I guess this goes to the defense attorney part of it. I mean, what leverage is there to get something better than going to trial and knowing that you could get a conviction and holding him to the highest level of the law?
So the first thing that you could look at is there anything that I or my client can offer you, the state, in exchange for a better plea deal? One of those things, and unfortunately, people like me think this way because that's our job. But one of those things is that when you have children that are the victims of these offenses, not making them testify and not making them go to a deposition is something that the state is often willing to negotiate for. So you have that conversation with the prosecutor and you say, look, I think all these search warrants are in order. I can't make a motion to suppress with a straight face.
Right.
I deposed all the cops. Everybody looks like they're on the up and up. If I choose not to depose the child or children in this case, like not to ask them questions, not to make them talk about it.
So it's more than one child. I don't know whether it's their kids. Freak offs with animals. That's wild. That's wild. Freak offs with animals.
What kind of a plea deal would you be offering me to not do that? And in some jurisdictions, there's like an unwritten rule that if you depose the victim of a sex crime, that there's no more plea offers. That's a really bad general rule to have because sometimes your case collapses in on itself like a neutron star as a prosecutor. I think back to, I think it was one of the guys in Hollywood that said never work with children or animals. So you never know what's going to happen. And in fact, when I used to prosecute cases with children, to a case, I always put the child on first and then used the rest of the witnesses to clean up whatever the heck just happened with the kid on the stand, because, it's just very difficult to control children and to be able to make them talk about what will hopefully be the worst thing that ever happened to them in front of a courtroom full of people. So
they've been doing it for years and years, but the whole point is modern day people putting it to the dog, and you watching, you the wife. Then he put his peen in you.
That's part of the negotiation there. There's also whether there were statements made by
I heard about horses though.
the child. A lot of times there are forensic interviews that are videotaped, so you already have a pretty good idea of what the kid's going to say, and you can go through that with your client and try to sit down and try to have a difficult conversation about the strength of the evidence.
You got the pictures. What's the defense? What defense would you even come up with?
Evidence here, which I think a lot of defense attorneys neglect to mention when they're talking about how you do cases. A lot of this job is making very difficult decisions and having very tough conversations with your clients.
Yeah, and that's going to be certainly a part of this going forward. Such a disturbing case out of Florida. But Kathleen Bogenschutz, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime.
Thanks for having me.
This is wild. This just happened. This is recent. This is in 2025. These people just got arrested. These people, look out for the peanut butter and jelly that they might have in the house. That's kind of nasty. But he was putting it to the dog. But they made it seem as though he was doing the acts, but she was in the picture, which meant she had to be holding the dog. Look out for families that got muzzles. Bunch of muzzles around the house. That would be my tale. Farm, animal farm, pig farm, dog farm, any kind of farm. I'm wary. I'm real wary. You can hear the dog. You can hear the sheep out there begging to tell them to stop. But in this case, it's dogs, hairy dogs. She right in the picture. She watching, and they got kids. And they got pictures of kids. I just wanted to bring this case to y'all. Put it on the docket for the wives doing some weird shit. This is the early show. We got the late show coming 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Y'all come back here at 10 p.m. We got the show. Y'all see the question on the thumbnail. The question on the thumbnail for the 10 o'clock show. This was just to update you on crimes that we were having in the community with women, a part of women. Not saying that they victims. These are not victims. Yeah, this is some wild shit. Y'all make sure y'all hit the like button, hit the like button. I see y'all at 10 o'clock. I'll be here at 10 o'clock. Hopefully, everybody be here at 10 o'clock.